Diablo 4 has come a long way since its release, but there are still some problems, and there's a lot of negative content out there, so this is going to be different. I'm going to show you how to solve the game's problems easily. No, that's not what I meant. I meant stuff like this. This video is going to cover some of the best solutions from the fans, with no filler, and it shows how they would actually look in the game, occasionally in musical format. And it also includes a lot of fresh ideas, like this one. Still workshopping that name. With a combination of these solutions, Diablo 4 could win back over a lot of the fans that it lost. As you may know, the game had a successful launch, but then something happened.
People are quitting, people are upset.
I'm done with Diablo 4.
It's just overwhelming how many people hate this.
You know this is the worst game of the year.
You know, it is not good.
Diablo 4 bad.
Diablo 4 bad.
D4 bad.
D4 bad.
Guys,
D4
come on.
Bad.
You're just using your channel points to say D4 bad. Stop.
D4 extremely bad.
Okay, I'm turning this up.
Okay, you get the point. So what exactly happened here? The with no filler version is some people got bored and some people got mad. By most accounts, Diablo 4 was not fully baked when it was released. Over the first month, there were a lot of hotfixes, primarily to make the game's most popular areas unappealing, so that people would try different stuff. And then the game announced a major patch update. The fans wanted that patch to fix the glitches and quality of life problems and spice up the endgame, but instead, the patch made everybody's characters weaker and slower to level up. That'll make people play longer, right? The big issues could just be fixed later in a series of expansions that you pay for. Actually, forget about this brand new game, Diablo 4. They're gonna work on the next game, Diablo 5. This series of events made a lot of Diablo 4 fans unhappy, and it was bad timing because that was right when the incredibly popular game Baldur's Gate 3 came out. BG3's design team got a lot of praise because they released a relatively complete game with no microtransactions, and the bear druids have a way different moveset than you would see in Diablo. No passive abilities. And while we're on the subject, people were also leaving Diablo 4 so they could spend more time looking at, that's right, Path of Exile. This Diablo-like game has been around for a decade, and its 35th ladder season was getting more traction than Diablo 4's first ladder season. Basically, people's interest in D4 sharply declined, and the first ladder season didn't do much to save that. Some of this is just the ordinary life cycle of a game, but it was pretty clear that Diablo 4's team was not going to take this lightly, because they started stacking damage reduction. They said they'd never do a patch like this again, they pledged to be more transparent, they randomly made these two employees struggle in front of the world, and then they announced that for Season 2, they were going to make a lot of the changes that the players had asked for. I think at least that last one was a huge step in the right direction, and it was well received by the fans too. Basically, they made it faster to get around, faster to level up, they added more stuff to do, and they fixed some bugs, like this one, where my fellow keyboard mouse players could not ride their horse full speed south, so I used to be able to catch up to them on foot. I should not have been able to murder that guy. The game has come a long way, but I think it still has some issues that could be easily solved. Just because I focus on those in this video doesn't mean that the game is all bad. On the contrary, I've actually had a lot of fun, especially in the zones where you can fight other players. If more people come back to Diablo 4, that's more people I can bonk, usually with a giant hammer. So of course I want the game to succeed. But for a lot of people, it's too little, too late. Many argue that the new quality of life updates are really just basic issues that should have been worked out before the game was released. That's a hard one to argue against, but whether you love the game or hate it, here we are now, and we have the developers' attention. So here comes the big question. What can Diablo 4 do to get its fans back? I think it's simple, really. The game already has a lot of fun moments. They just need to trim down the stuff that gets in the way of having fun. Because the game is full of features that are made to slow you down and things that constantly require you to make boring trips to town and then you're not allowed to sprint there when you're riding on a mount. Turns out none of that is fun. The legendary powers can be scattered everywhere, but they quickly fill your stash until there's barely room to spare. Just let me store them in the cloud. Let it sort them and compare. If I get 10,000 more with no support, then I might pull out my hair. You have no room in your stash because they couldn't add the tabs because it has to load the stash for nearby players in your map. So if you see a bunch of people, then you get a bunch of lag. But is that actually any fun? When you're finally done with inventory management, no way to filter out your items, so who knows how long it's been. Now you'd like to go enchant, but it's expensive, so you can't. You only get 2 new options from a list that's filled with crap. I hope you memorized your passives. There's no search bar for your moves, there's no search bar for your map, there's no search bar with this dude. You have to interrupt the action because you're always out of room. They should redo it or remove it if it's getting in the way of the fun. Hopefully that will get someone's attention at Blizzard. Basically, I'm saying if the game gives you chores, then it should also give you tools to make those chores take the absolute minimum amount of time. The priority of any game should be for you to spend the most of your game time having the most fun. I mean, I have enough chores in real life. I'm not trying to spend all my free time doing chores in a game. I don't think anyone is. Well, some people are, but I'm talking about things like stash space. I get that running out of space is a challenge, and it forces you to make hard decisions about what you want to keep. But there is an oppressively tiny amount of stash space that you have to share between all your characters. Oh great, I picked up some new content that they added. Let's just put that, you know what, why don't I just hang on to this? When there's all this new content competing for the same space, and when you're trying to save stuff to try out different builds, the challenge of choosing what to throw away is not fun. And with the character limit, there's really not enough room for mules either. I know this is being worked on. They said they want to add tabs, the game is just not coded well to support that in the open world. But I hope they figure it out because running out of stash space is the opposite of fun. They did add a search bar to the stash, which is fantastic, but that doesn't stop you from running out of space. One thing that could save a lot of space is aspects, the legendary powers you can put on your gear. If they truly want us to experiment and try out different builds, then these should not have to compete for stash space. The aspects tab is actually smaller than your other tabs for some reason, but I think they should just do away with the tab, and they should simply let you store your aspects in the Codex. It could look like this, so when you click on that legendary power, it opens another window where you can either use the Codex, or you can use one of the aspects you collected. If you have multiples of the same aspect, it should rank them by their variable stats. That's why I added the green bars on the side of each aspect here. 0 green bars means it's the worst roll, and 10 green bars means it's the best roll. That's kind of already how the game looks at it, and it should tell you what your best one is without making you look. And to really make this work well, you need to be able to compare the legendary powers you find with the ones you have in storage. That way you can confidently know whether it's junk right then and there. D4 team, feel free to copy this, it's free advice. There are simpler ways to fix this, like upgrading the Codex directly or having it copy the best legendaries you found. But if your Codex can just print out perfect rolls, then the thousands of legendaries you find after that become almost meaningless. I don't want to have to think about every legendary like I do now, but I also don't want them to be worthless, and the way I showed you takes the hassle away without diminishing their value. Also, I would like to view the Codex from anywhere, like it's the cloud. And you should be able to salvage aspects. Right now it doesn't let you. You honestly should be able to salvage things no matter where you are, and that's why I'm pretty excited about this next idea. I think an incredible solution for itemization would be if we could get a little window to salvage our gear directly from our inventory, and maybe even let it extract aspects too, like anywhere. That way we don't have to waste our time after every single dungeon going to town with a loading screen, running over to that guy, running over to this guy who gives me the creeps. I tested it and I was spending almost 1/3 of my time going to town just to do chores. Some of that time was spent sifting through loot. There are so many throwaway stats that it's like a 1 in 1,000 chance of finding a useful item with 3 decent rolls, but you still have to look at every piece of equipment one by one in order to find it. That's why this game really needs a loot filter, something that filters out which items you can see based on a criteria you set. Here it is, I photoshopped it. For each piece of gear, it should let you highlight the items that have at least 2 or 3 of the affixes you want, and it should let you filter by item level. You should have control over the types of implicits or weapons you see, and you should have the ability to highlight the items that pass the filter test, and if they fail the filter test, you can gray them out or even hide them. In my example here, all legendaries pass the filter, but you can change that, and you can choose which legendary powers you see, and it'll work on the items in your inventory too, so as you add more filters, you can easily tell what to hang on to. A loot filter would cut out like 90% of the time it takes me to do chores, and so would a portable salvage, and together this would almost completely eliminate the most tedious and boring part of the game. I beg of you, Blizzard, please, please implement these ideas. Now, whenever you do finally find a good item, your next step is usually to re-roll the worst stat into a good one, aka Enchanting. It can be frustrating because you only get 2 new options from a list of mostly filler options, so you're probably gonna have to try over and over again to get the one you want. I would like for them to either give more than 2 new options, or condense the filler options, or both, and they need to say what these passives do. It would also be nice if we could tinker with the implicit stats. That's the one up here. They go back and forth on nerfing the implicits that make you move faster. So my fully upgraded boots here at a high item level still only have 1 charge of evade. So you're just slowing me down then. Cool. Another problem I have with Enchanting is it makes your items untradeable. The only items you are allowed to trade are not best in slot until you slap a legendary power on them, which makes them untradeable. And any sort of re-rolling or tinkering with the items also makes them untradeable.
A couch bound.
For that reason, Diablo 4's trading economy is basically dead. I think a better trading system could have kept players invested and interested much longer. I mean, if I had it my way, there would be no trading restrictions, Diablo 2 style, but there are definitely fans who disagree with me on that one for valid reasons. And the game runners don't like it either, because then you could just get all the best gear without really playing the game. But they could sort of appease both sides of this argument with 2 simple changes. First off, if you've completed this dungeon and I've completed this dungeon, then we both have unlocked this power. Why not let us trade stuff that has that power? Honestly, who is that hurting? And if it's one of those sneaky powers that cannot be farmed from a dungeon, they could gatekeep the trading for those based on your level or world tier. And if we have to make an item untradeable when we tinker with it, let us have a way to restore that item to its default settings so that we can trade it again. Or just don't make it go untradeable in the first place. I think a vast majority of people would appreciate if they just relax the trading restrictions a little. I have so much I want to say about trading economies that grow inside video games, and how those economies interact with real money. I'm giving this topic its own video, and its own show tune.
Maybe you're paid to win, and I'm paid to win. And so is the society that we're all living in.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. But for now, let's zoom out from that, and talk about zooming out from this. I'm pretty sure D4 is the most zoomed in a Diablo game has ever been, and there's no option to back up even a little bit. But if they do finally let us zoom out a little bit more, we're going to really need custom zoom settings that we can flip to quickly from the wheel. Like if I'm way zoomed out, but then I get into a close range fight, I don't want to have to manually zoom in. I'll die if I do that. But if I have a preset zoom on this wheel, then I can quickly handle it in the middle of combat. The zooming problem is intensified by enemies that can hit you from off screen with no warning. And by the horse. It'd be nice to be a little bit more zoomed out for the horse. They actually made the horses a lot better in Season 2. I just don't know why they can't sprint in town. Is there a school zone or... Anyway, I think they made the game more fun by making the horse less challenging, but some kinds of things could be more fun if they're more challenging. For example, almost all the stuff you can do in the open world becomes obsolete in the late game because you cannot get an optimal amount of experience. Currently, you get the biggest experience multiplier from monsters that are 10 levels higher than you. They just made it so most areas scale to exactly your level, and some places are your level plus 3. But eventually, none of the places are 10 levels higher except for Nightmare Dungeons. Like I said earlier, you could solve this problem and so many other problems if you had a consumable that just made it so every monster is at least 10 levels higher than you. Then you would get the maximum experience no matter where you are, your loot would be better, and the game would be more challenging in a good way. When monsters scale with your level, leveling up actually makes you relatively weaker, except you get a skill point or paragon points to deal with it. Personally, I like that. It keeps the game challenging, but some people hate it because it basically robs them of feeling how powerful they've actually become. I don't want to take that feeling from anyone. I just think we should be able to choose between scaling or fixed, and we should be able to have it scale in a way that gives us optimal experience. Basically, take this pill and you can make the open world much more useful. That would include Helltides. Helltides are honestly kind of fun. You slay demons to open treasure chests. In theory, Helltides should be good for target farming pieces of gear that you need, but they're not because you have to get close to each chest just for them to show up on your map. And when they do show up, the labels are vague for no good reason. You have to go to a third-party website to figure out where the mystery chest is, and there's no need for it to be a hassle like that. Just put all Helltide chests on the map, even the mystery ones, and say what they specifically are no matter where you are in the open world. That's a super easy change. It would make Helltides a lot better. So next we have the Tree of Whispers.
We are not very useful.
They recently made this thing pump out golden experience, and it gives you stuff you need to fight Uber Duriel, but it would be nice if you could use it to target farm. It could be great for target farming if you could get more than 3 random options, or if certain bounties guaranteed that certain types of gear would show up in the options, or gave you a small shot at getting a unique. It should probably do all those things because it could be awesome for target farming. They did add an enchanter to the Tree of Whispers waypoint, which pretty much made it the most efficient place to clear your inventory between runs. I liked Rax's idea to add a jeweler to this area too. Just make it a complete one-stop shop, and add a keybind to the emote wheel to teleport you straight to this waypoint. Great stuff. Obviously, there would not be such a huge burden to make this area efficient if you could just salvage and filter your loot anywhere, or if you could yoink your aspects and store them from anywhere. A lot of these problems just melt away if you tackle their root cause. And that's the whole point of this video. To show you simple changes that would make the game immensely better, and to show you exactly how they could look. I mostly went over the big low-hanging fruit, but I have so many other things I want to talk about, like endgame content, PvP, making this stat useful, and many other great suggestions from the fans. And I have a graph that lays out a theory that just might fix the game. For a hint, it's kind of a remix of an Asmongold talking point.
Diablo, people have been, it is not good.
Diablo, people have been, like what you know it is not good.
No, not that talking point. I was talking about this one. I'm gonna cover all that in the next video. I'm just trying to wrap up this one before you get another ad. I never turned on ads, but that doesn't stop them from interrupting me mid-sentence to plop in ads whenever they want. And lately they've been plopping a lot. So there's a non-zero amount of Oh, come on. So there's a non-zero amount of money that's being made off of my hard work, and I don't get any of it because I'm trying to keep the filler and the ads away from you, my noble viewer. But now the ads aren't keeping away. It's why I disappeared for a while, but I'm back, and with this video I'm not going to turn on ads, but I will turn on the super thanks button if you want to support me. Wanted to be upfront about that because it technically is monetizing, but I don't think it gives you any extra ads. And back to the point of this video, please let me know the changes you want to see to Diablo 4, and you might get featured in part 2 of this video. If you comment using your actual face, then I might make you look like Batman to protect your identity. So spread the word. The more engagement this video gets, the more likely it will be seen by someone who can actually improve the game. Okay, bye.